Welcome to your deep dive. We're tackling a truly mind-bending question today. How do things like quantum physics, energy, life itself, and even, the meaning of existence, how do they all connect?
It's a huge question.
Yeah. Our mission today, using your sources, is to explore this idea that the universe is fundamentally relational. We'll look at it from the tiniest quantum scales right up to, the big picture of life.
It's fascinating, really, how much our picture of reality has shifted. Classical physics, it gave us this predictable world, deterministic.
Like clockwork.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you get down to the subatomic level and quantum mechanics just flips the script. Suddenly, it's all probabilities, potentiality.
Right, so properties like, say, where a particle is or its energy, they aren't just there.
No, not until there's an interaction, a measurement. That's what makes them definite. It's the interaction that actualizes them.
Okay, and that's key, because often you hear observer in quantum physics and people immediately think, well, a conscious person looking at it.
Right, that's a common misconception.
Yeah.
But the sources are clear. The observer is any physical system, anything that interacts and causes what's called decoherence.
So not necessarily a human mind, just a physical process.
Precisely. It's about the physical interaction, plain and simple. And this ties into energy too, doesn't it?
Ah, yes, energy. We know about conservation, but Einstein.
Well, Einstein blew that wide open with hemiosphere. Suddenly, mass wasn't just mass, it is energy, a very, very concentrated form.
And quantum field theory, QFT, takes that even further.
Oh, absolutely. QFT says the fundamental reality isn't particles at all, it's fields. Continuous quantum fields filling all the space.
Wow. So what we perceive as particles.
They're more like localized excitations, vibrations, sort of, in these fields. Little blips of energy manifesting momentarily.
Like ripples on a pond?
Kind of, yeah. They're literally manifestations of field energy, which means everything is inherently connected through these fields. It's a web.
Okay, so manifestation. That word gets used a lot in other contexts, right? Like people saying thoughts can directly create reality using quantum ideas.
Mm-hmm. And your sources tackle this head on. They call it a category error.
A category error.
Meaning you're mixing concepts from totally different domains, applying quantum rules, which work for subatomic particles, to things like, human thoughts or emotions where they just don't fit. The observer isn't your consciousness, and vibration for feelings isn't physics.
And these quantum effects are incredibly delicate anyway.
Extremely. That decoherence we mentioned, it happens almost instantly when a quantum system interacts with its environment. That's why we don't see, cats being both alive and dead in boxes in our everyday world.
Right. The weirdness gets averaged out very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So the takeaway is quantum physics is strange, but it doesn't mean you can just wish things into existence.
Exactly. But energy does manifest in incredible ways. Just look at life itself.
Ah, okay. Bioenergetics.
Yes. Light is this amazing open system. It constantly takes in energy and uses it to build and maintain order, pushing back against entropy, against chaos. It's a real manifestation of energy.
And the global energy cycle is central to that. Photosynthesis capturing sunlight.
Building glucose, essentially storing that solar energy in chemical bonds.
And then cellular respiration breaks down that glucose.
Releasing the energy, largely as ATP. That's the universal energy currency for pretty much all life. It powers everything.
So life is constantly channeling and transforming energy. It is the ultimate manifestation, turning energy into complex, ordered structures.
Beautifully put. And it brings us back to that core idea, relation. Philosophically, something's identity, its meaning, comes from its connections, right?
Yeah, not just from what it is in isolation.
And modern physics echoes this so strongly. Think about quantum entanglement particles linked in ways that defy classical intuition. Measuring one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart. That's a fundamental connection.
And QFT with its fields. Particles aren't separate things. They're nodes in this dynamic, interconnected web.
Precisely. The universe isn't a collection of independent objects. It's a system where relationships are primary. It's all interconnected.
So thinking about what this all means for you, listening, the science seems to point towards meaning being relation. Everything, including us, is defined by its connections.
Yeah, we're not just detached observers looking in. We're participants, part of this intricate relational dance.
Which really leads to a powerful question, doesn't it? If existence itself is fundamentally this web of relations, how might exploring your own connections to people, to ideas, to the world unlock deeper meaning and possibility in your life? Welcome to the Deep Dive. We cut through all the noise to get you the core insights from our sources. Today, it's a really fascinating journey we're taking you on, a deep dive into the huge, complex world of global religious learning. Yeah, the mission here is basically to navigate this rich tapestry, pull out the foundational ideas, the moral codes, concepts of salvation, and maybe most compellingly, the kind of surprising ways these different traditions interact. It's about getting you clued in quickly.
And, what immediately jumped out really from looking at the sources is this powerful idea of supergroups. We're talking about the Abrahamic religions, so Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and then the Indian religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism. The really insightful part, I think, isn't just that they're like big demographic groups. It's how these groupings show these incredibly deep theological, historical connections. They shape the core principles in ways that will often go beyond just superficial differences. It's like looking at the architecture of global faith.
That's a great way to put it, architecture. So how do these theological architectures, these supergroups, actually approach the big questions in life? And where do they fundamentally diverge, or maybe surprisingly line up? Let's try and unpack the core essence, maybe without getting totally lost in every single detail.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do that. When we look at the Abrahamic faiths, their unity often comes from that idea of a single transcendent God and the shared figure of Abraham, like you said. But the path to salvation or ultimate purpose, it shifts. Christianity, for example, it really grounds salvation in the unique idea of the Trinity and Jesus' resurrection, emphasizing grace. Islam, though, highlights tawhid. That's the absolute oneness of God, and salvation is found through worship, through profound submission. It's fundamentally different on ideas like original sin.
Right, quite distinct there.
Exactly. And Judaism, well, it's guided by the Torah and its 613 mitzvot, the commandments. It connects the world to come, olam haba, directly to a person's deeds and their covenant with God.
Okay. And if we sort of pivot from that Abrahamic view, the sources then take us into this, well, quite profound philosophical landscape of the Indian religions. They often share a different take on existence itself, right? More focus on cycles.
Precisely, yes. Indian traditions frequently share concepts like karma and samsara, that cycle of rebirth we hear about, but they offer really distinct paths to liberation from it. So Hinduism, for instance, seeks moksha, which is liberation from this cycle. The aim is uniting the Atman, the individual soul, with Brahman, the sort of universal essence. Buddhism, which is unique because it's generally non-theistic, focuses instead on ending dukkha suffering through the Four Noble Truths. The goal there is achieving nirvana, a really profound state of liberation.
Okay.
And Sikhism, while it also seeks mukti, spiritual liberation, it really emphasizes universal equality and selfless service within the world, not necessarily renunciation.
Interesting distinction. Now, beyond these sort of major groupings, the sources also shed light on the, well, equally rich wisdom of indigenous religions, which often get overlooked. What's the kind of striking common thread we see there?
What's truly compelling, I think, about indigenous traditions is their strong emphasis on oral traditions and this profound animism, the belief that spirits inhabit, all natural things.
Right, the interconnectedness.
Exactly, that interconnectedness with the land, with all living things. Their vision of the afterlife often involves something like a land of the dead, but it notably tends to lack that concept of eternal punishment for earthly deeds that we find in some other major traditions. It points to a different kind of accountability, perhaps.
That is a lot to take in so many really deep concepts. But, thinking across all these diverse systems, what's maybe the most surprising common ground the sources highlighted in how people navigate suffering?
Right. This is where it gets really fascinating, especially if we connect it to the bigger picture. The powerful dynamics between these religions, despite their fundamental differences, like theism versus non-theism, or concepts like an immortal soul versus the Buddhist idea of anatta or non-self. Many traditions remarkably converge on core ethical principles, things like compassion, love, the golden rule, treating others as you'd want to be treated.
That does seem pretty universal.
It really does. They all offer structured paths to, navigate suffering and encourage self-cultivation. It feels like a shared human quest for meaning and peace, really.
And thinking about those shared threads then, what specific challenges do these modern interfaith dialogues like you see with the Parliament of the World's Religions, what are they trying to tackle today?
Yeah, today, these contemporary efforts, like interfaith dialogue, they're absolutely crucial. They're addressing huge global challenges, everything from climate change to social justice issues, and they promote religious literacy, which is so important. The aim is really for peace and understanding across incredibly diverse societies.
Hmm.
It's more about finding common ground for action, maybe not necessarily complete theological agreement.
That makes sense. So, okay, wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you listening in as you navigate our pretty complex world? I think this deep dive really shows us a global tapestry of faiths. Distinct, yes, but also profoundly interwoven.
Absolutely. Understanding these diverse spiritual quests with their shared values and their unique paths, it's really indispensable today. It's more than just accumulating knowledge. It's about seeing the world with perhaps greater nuance and hopefully fostering a more harmonious global society, even when our deepest beliefs seem to diverge.
And perhaps it leaves you with this thought to mull over. In a world with such rich spiritual diversity, what shared human experience do you think most powerfully bridges our differences, even when our beliefs seem worlds apart?